CPI, which came out in July, that was flat, so no price increases in July.
Just go back to your comparison between this and the PPP loans,
Sure.
because what Republicans and critics are saying is that there's a difference between those decisions being voted on by Congress and those loans that turned into grants being by and large for to cover businesses that were shut down by the government involuntarily because of a natural disaster versus students who willfully took out their loans and are now unable for whatever reason to repay them. There is a difference there.
Well, I would say both actions are based on laws that Congress passed. We are implementing a law that Congress passed, actually a Republican Congress and Republican president in 2003, the HEROES Act. And again, that's the exact same legal authority that the previous administration used to put a pause on student loan payments. That's the authority that we're using in this instance. So, we are acting consistent with the law.
If I can quickly, the White House yesterday was pretty vocal on Twitter, which it isn't always, criticizing some of the critics of this program, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, among them, saying how much money they received in PPP loans in the past. I think you would agree that there is a difference between a loan program as it existed, which was conceived to be, the PPP program that was conceived to be forgivable, assuming you spent a majority, I think 80% on the payroll, as opposed to these loans, which were for individuals with expectation when they made money, they'd be paying it back. So is that a fair comparison, and why?
Yeah, we absolutely think it's a fair comparison, and here's why. So, since last July, we have forgiven, under the statutory terms of the PPP program, more than $350 billion worth of loans. But look, has any Republican in the last year stood up and said, inflation is really high, you guys should stop providing this loan forgiveness to PPP recipients? You should slow it down. The
median household income in this country right now is roughly $67,000, which means that this is going to go for those up to $125,000. Those individuals are already making individually almost twice the median household income in this country. What do you say to those critics who say, you're not just helping the middle class, though I understand 90% will be making under $75,000, you're still helping what is a smaller percentage, but a significant percentage of individuals who most Americans would view as making a lot of money?
Sure. So look, in our view, this, as you noted, nearly 90% of the benefits go to people making under $75,000 a year. And our view is that the folks that you mentioned, under $125,000, they are middle class families. And I think that they would widely be considered as such. And look, I want to be totally clear about this point.
$125,000 or $250,000. Would you view that as a middle class family,
Sure.
A family that makes under $250,000?
Absolutely. Look, the key cutoff here is that nobody in the top 5%, whether
are you still considering this self-paid for, right? Because mitigation and compensating it in other ways are not necessarily having internal pays for this bill. So are you still phrasing this as it pays for itself, or are you phrasing it in a different way?
What I would say is that, yes, this is paid for. It is paid for and far more by the amount of deficit reduction that we're already on track for this year. Like I said, we're on track for $1.7 trillion. So, yes, we consider it fully paid for.
Because I have you right now, and Jay Powell spoke earlier today. He said that, the Fed was likely going to continue to pursue interest rate hikes, but that it could result in pain in both a slower economy and job losses. Obviously, inflation is a major concern, and that's what the Fed is looking at here. But the president has not only said that the Fed is independent, but it has sort of endorsed their vision. And if their vision results in job losses and an economic slowdown, has the president's opinion of that changed in any way?
Well, I'm not going to answer that hypothetical, but I will say that we have great respect for the independence of the Federal Reserve. I'm not going to comment directly on Chair Powell's comments, but there's been a lot of good data released about the economy.
Argued about the $1 trillion in deficit reduction. It sounds like it's hard to get to like a $240 billion figure over 10 years with this new estimate, but is it fair to say that 1.7 trillion becomes 1.5, or it becomes a lower figure given that it's not paid for? Is that a fair way for us to sort of think about what you guys are doing?
That's a fair way of thinking about it. And another way of thinking about it is that we go from the single largest deficit reduction in the history of this country to the single largest deficit reduction in the history of this country.
You've argued that this is potentially a deflationary move. Do you have any estimates in terms of how much money will start to come in come January, and how much money is going to be not coming in, and to articulate a little bit more of how you guys are arriving
Yeah.
at that conclusion.
Yeah, we've looked at those numbers, and they informed our view that we put out on Wednesday that we view that the impact of restarting payments and providing relief are largely going to offset each other. Now, there's different assumptions about